Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When we were trying to get this podcast off the ground, we had so many questions. How do we record an episode? Where do we find background music? How do we get our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places that people like to listen? And where do we find advertisers? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, distributing, and monetizing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and 100% ridiculously easy to use. Anchor makes it simple to get up and running. You can upload and schedule your podcasts ahead of time. It publishes to all the major podcast platforms. You can easily check your stats. I could go on, but instead, why don't you go and get started? Go to anchor.fm/start to join the e-commerce minute and a diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. We can't wait to hear your podcast.
It's the E-commerce Minute, your daily dose of e-commerce, tech, and retail news with your hosts, Bart Mraz and John Suter. The E-commerce Minute is a production of Sumo Heavy, a digital commerce consulting firm in Brooklyn, New York, and Philadelphia. Find us on the web at sumoheavy.com. This episode of the E-commerce Minute is brought to you by Frameology. Frameology is simple, beautiful framing for the photos you love. Pick a frame, upload a photo, done. Start shopping at frameology.com. It's E-commerce Minute episode 357.
In today's episode, Ford, Walmart, and Postmates team up on robot delivery.
Ford Motor Company is joining forces with Walmart and Postmates to create an autonomous grocery delivery service in Miami, Florida. Miami-Dade County has been the center of Ford's self-driving tests this year. Ford has already been testing out what a commercial self-driving vehicle business might look like through collaborations with Domino's Pizza and other local merchants, and has already completed more than 1,000 deliveries as part of the initial phases of building up its self-driving business. It recently joined with delivery service Postmates to see how customers would react to autonomous food delivery via Ford self-driving cars. The company is now ready to move to the next stage of autonomous delivery, grocery. Ford says during the Walmart Postmates pilot, it will work closely with Walmart to understand its operations, identify what goods can be transported, and experiment with different types of vehicles and modifications that help keep food fresh. The company said it would also examine different scenarios, such as multi-trip deliveries, and monitor the user experience of customers retrieving orders from a driverless vehicle. The testing is being conducted by Argo AI, the Pittsburgh-based startup in which Ford invested $1 billion in 2016. Ford has stated it plans to spend $4 billion through 2023 in its newly created LLC dedicated to building out an autonomous vehicle business. Ford expects to launch its commercial self-driving service by 2021.
Ooh, fancy.
Ford's going big on the self-driving. Obviously, they pick a warm climate like Miami, whereas like Waymo is in, where are they, Phoenix? You know, they wouldn't do that around here where it's cold all the time.
That'd be fun though. I mean, it's gonna come at some point.
Sure.
But it'll be interesting. It'll be definitely interesting in busier areas.
Yeah, it's weird. So what's neat about this is they're not just studying the nuts and bolts of put groceries in car, send car to stop. They're also examining what happens when the car pulls up. How does the customer interact with the car? And what I did not mention in the actual read of the article is that on these testing, there's actually somebody in the car. There's someone who's watching and recording and gathering data. They're not fully autonomous as of yet, but they will be. But during this testing, there's actually someone in there, and they're looking at usability things. They're looking at things like how, when the car pulls up, what does the customer do? Do they just stand there? Do they wait for the door to open? What happens when they take the groceries out? Does the customer expect the door to shut on its own, or do they close the door? Just common sense things that you kind of assume, but that they'll test and say, you know what? Every customer does this. We need to change this thing here. Because I think Ford's ambitions, they really are focusing not so much on we want to have a self-driving car for you and I. They want to focus on business. They want to roll out business fleets of autonomous vehicles that do delivery and other things. And this kind of test with consumers and grocery, I think, is a low-hanging fruit because it's something that they can conduct a whole lot of tests for not a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of autonomous vehicles are coming and we'll be here, and from vending machines to just delivery to digital signage to everything, right?
Yeah, it's interesting that they partnered with Walmart for the grocery, and I guess it was just based on geography, being in Miami, because Walmart is partnered with Waymo. And if you remember that ridiculous story where Waymo picks the customer up and brings them to the stores and groceries.
That that one is mind-boggling.
That was the one in Phoenix that had you scratching your head big time.
Yeah.
But they're not the only ones that are doing the grocery delivery. There's a company called startup called I don't even know how to pronounce this. Udelv. Udelv. I get it. Delivery. Udelv startup. They're working in Oklahoma City, doing some grocery deliveries. A company called AutoX is using retrofitted Lincoln MKX vehicles for customers in San Jose. Kroger is using Neuro. I think they were the ones that have the little robots that run around down the street, which we also are scratching our head at. So a lot of people are experimenting, and if they get the money, I mean, they're gonna shake all this out. And I promise you, in 3 years, this will be just something you're gonna see everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I'm waiting for that. That'd be fun delivery for everything.
Yeah, it's curious though. Like, you get a self-driving car pulls up to your house. You're looking for the driver. Those kids today, they're going to see this as like a commonplace thing, but it still boggles my mind. A car that has no driver, it just freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah, it's I'm trying to think of a movie that was kind of in either Demolition Man or original. There's Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was on Mars, whatever that movie was. Remember that? Total Recall.
Oh, Totally.
Where a cab comes by and the cab driver is actually not a human, it's just a robot.
Right. But I think people are, and it's funny because I think, and this is just from a perception standpoint, if you stuck a robot behind the driver's seat, people would probably feel more comfortable with that, even though the robot wasn't doing anything.
Exactly.
It's just that whole, like, you've lived your entire life, a car has a driver, and now cars have no drivers. Like, they even said a lot of the autonomous cars have steering wheels in there because people are used to seeing a steering wheel. Like, they're going to build them without steering wheels, and that's going to freak a lot of people out because why do you need a steering wheel?
There's no need for it.
There's
right?
no need for it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like they said, the next batch of driverless cars will have no pedals and no steering wheel, which is going to be totally bonkers. It'll still have the same form factor because that's just tooling, but why put all that stuff in? You're not going to use it. It's crazy.
Why do I need it? How do I stop this? It'd be interesting to steal these cars, right? Like, you can't really steal them.
Well, and they said, like, driverless cars like solve all the traffic problems because traffic is a human caused problem. It's not just construction or obstructions or things like that. It's everyone reacting to everyone else, and it just backs up and backs up and backs up. And once you put computers in charge of moving the traffic, there's not going to be any more traffic,
Yep.
I'm looking forward to that. All right, that's Ford teaming up with Walmart and Postmates. Keep an eye on that one with their robot cars in Miami. Bart, do you have anything else to add?
No, that is it.
All right, that's your e-commerce minute. Full show notes are at ecommerceminute.co. We'll see you on the internet tomorrow. That's it for today's show. If you like the show, do us a favor and subscribe or leave us a review on iTunes. And don't forget, you can now listen to the e-commerce minute on your Amazon device. Just add e-commerce minute to your flash briefing. And finally, if you have a comment or suggestion or just want to say hi, find us on social media at Sumo Heavy.